Yeah.
So let's
Alright.
start everything up.
Okay, I'm practicing up against AI because we haven't played in a while.
Alright.
So, that's the thing when you've like gotten just playing one game for like a couple days. The second you want to start playing another game, the controls are just all.
That's exactly how I was with Bloodborne. It's like, let's play Bloodborne for a month and then try and play other games. And it's like, how do buttons work?
How do buttons work? Okay,
Oh, but yeah, the whole like Ruby issue and like all the videos I've seen talking about how like Cinder's a poorly written character and just like overall like bad character, and like Ruby's apparently like a very bad protagonist. And I don't understand it because like their arguments are that Cinder's just cliche and we don't know anything about her, and we're almost
what's
six
the argument
seasons
against
in,
what's the
and
argument against Ruby? That's what I want to know.
from what I understand, I could be wrong on this because like I don't like or I don't like hateful videos towards Ruby because like okay, I understand everyone's gonna have their opinion, everyone's open to their opinion. However, when you just thoroughly just trash characters and writing in a show, it bugs me because you're basically just trashing, especially since one of the creators died. Like, I find it
Yeah.
heavily offensive that you're just trashing this piece of media for absolutely no reason outside of the fact that, like, oh, these are my issues with it. And it's like, well, your issues aren't really valid.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like it's fine. You don't have to like it. But there's really no reason to trash it.
And
Even then, like
then,
out of the things, like I can see why people probably wouldn't like Ruby. Like everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
and again,
But
I
when it
have
comes
no
down to it, it's
issue
not
with
the
someone's opinion. If you don't like it, you don't like it. My issue
yeah.
is when you just thoroughly eviscerate it by saying that it's horrible. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, no.
you can. I don't mind seeing an opinion from someone who doesn't like it. Just give me proper, like the actual, points that you just don't like about it, and just be like, this is just something that I didn't like, or I thought that this could be better, or something like that. Kind of be constructive about it instead of being like, I hate this because this, and this is trash, this is horrible, and it's like,
And
you
my
could
biggest
honestly,
issue with the whole like we don't know anything about Cinder and what we do know is cliche. My issue with that argument is that that's every other villain in Ruby, and those other villains are loved. And I'm just
yeah.
sitting here like, you're hypocritical. Like, you really are. You're going to say that, like, oh, we don't know anything about Cinder's motivations or anything, and what we do know is cliche, and then at the same time, you love Salem, who we know nothing about, we have no idea what her motives are, outside of the fact that she's cruel, she's sadistic, and she wants to kill everything. And if you ask me, that's a simplistic character and cliche character. And yet
And
Salem is loved while Cinder is hated. However, they're both relatively the same.
it's pretty like similar when it comes down to it. It's like, you know, we don't know much about either of them. I mean, yeah, they did go into some story about Salem, but like, we still
They really
don't really.
don't though, because like they don't even like tell you where Salem came from. It's kind of just like, oh, Salem exists and she wants to kill us. Why? Figure it out. We haven't talked about it yet. And then it's like, oh, Salem's this big, awesome villain. And then you look at Cinder and it's like, we have no idea why Cinder's here. All we know is that she wants to kill us. And then the audience is like, oh, that just makes her cliche and she's terribly written and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, motherfucker, you just praised Salem for being a good villain, even though this is basically exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And you know, when you look at stuff that other people have written, and like you look at villains from other things, it's like, you know, a lot of the villains that people love, like they don't really go into much detail about their backstory either. It's like that's not.
I will say this. I will say this. I do not at all think Cinder is a bad character. I don't. I don't even think she's a decent character. In my opinion, Cinder is a good character. And the reason why she's a good character, in my opinion, is because she's not made out to be like this person that's going to get a redemption or anything. She is specifically the villain, and the way she is written is good for a villain character.
She's a villain, and she's a good villain. You know, she's a good written villain.
She's a very good villain. Also, you want to make the argument that we don't know anything about her motivations and that what we do know about her is cliche. We don't know anything about Mercury or Emerald, and what we do is cliche, and yet they're liked more than Cinder is. However, they're basically the same. Because it's like, in Mercury's case, we don't know what his motivations are. And what we do know about him is that his dad was a mercenary, Cinder was looking for his dad, and when she found their house, Mercury's house was on fire and he had killed his dad. For whatever reason. We don't know why Mercury killed his dad. All we know is that some shit went down and Mercury killed his dad, and now Mercury works with Cinder. We don't know anything else about him, and yet he is praised as being a good villain. And then, on the flip side, Emerald, all we know about her is that she was a street urchin. She was on the street, she was homeless, and then Cinder found her and was like, hey, work for me, you'll never go hungry again. And Emerald's like, okay. And again, Mercury and Emerald get a lot more love despite being technically underwritten, cliched characters. And yet Cinder is hated for it. And I don't know why, like, I don't understand the hypocriticalness of it. Like, the hypocrisy of it. I hate those words.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. It's just like, I don't see the hatred for Cinder when there's not like really much hatred for these other villains in the series that are
also another good example of it that gets me all the fucking time when I hear this argument that Cinder is a quote-unquote one-dimensional character. Tyrion. His only character features are he's ballistically insane and he's obsessed with being a good boy for Salem. And that's it. That is his character in a nutshell. He's psychotic, cruel, insane, and obsessed with pleasing his mistress. Take that as you will. And yet, Tyrion is like one of the most popular characters out of the 5th season. Not 5th season, 4th season. My bad.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I like Tyrion and all, but I'm just like, you know, when you look at it, it's like, you know,
Tyrion is one of the most popular characters of that season, and yet technically he's underwritten and one-dimensional because all he is insane. And that is literally it. And then again, on the flip side, oh, Cinder is one-dimensional and underwritten, and she's horrible. And it's like, your point doesn't stand when most of the villains are quote-unquote underwritten and underdeveloped and one-dimensional and cliche. And yet you're only, out of all these examples of this, you're only hating on one character. So your argument's no longer, like, has any validity to it.
Yeah, because, like, you know, if you're gonna be pointing out these issues with Cinder, you should at least, you know, pick up the other villains too, you know, because it's all, you know, they all have stuff about them that's pretty cool. You know, you can point out stuff like that with other characters too. It's not just Cinder.
Another
And
thing
yet
that
these
gets me
other
is the
villains
people that are
so
like...
buffed.
Another thing that gets me is the argument that Ruby's lost its way, it's not the same as it used to be, and it's bad, and it's like, why? And it's like, because it's all dark and serious now, whereas in the beginning it was fun and cheerful and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, what's your point? Like, actually, what is your point? Because, yes, in the first 2 seasons and most of Season 3, it was cheerful and lighthearted, and then at the end of Season 3, that's when you had that huge tonal shift.
Yeah.
And, like, I can understand why the tonal shift, like, for as sudden as it was, kinda, like, irked people. But me, personally, I like a dark and gritty story, so I have no issue with the tonal shift of Ruby. I love it. And also, from a narrative standpoint, it makes sense. Because Seasons 1 and 2 were cheerful and lighthearted, but they are also more world building and these getting to know the characters more. Season 3 was like the starting point of like, hey, it's a tournament, so it can't, like, it's not going to be that tense because it's like, oh, it's just a school tournament. However, you have like Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald like working in the shadows, like scheming and conniving and like setting the tournament up and like putting certain people against other certain people and basically just fucking with everyone without actually doing anything. And then at the end is where shit breaks off, because it gradually, like, you have Cinder and Mercury and Emerald like fucking with people, and then you have the army that showed up out of fucking nowhere with, well, their fucking army, and it's making people nervous. And as the season builds up, everyone's progressively getting nervous because it's like, well, why the fuck is the army here? What else is going on? What's happening? And then at the end, all that fear and trauma brings the Grimm, and then Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald take advantage of that, causing more chaos, taking over the robots for the military, because the military thought robots were a good idea because nothing can go wrong when robots are on your side. The robots ended up getting hacked, and the way that Cinder handled it in filming, they filmed the Grimm, yes, but they also filmed the military attacking civilians, which caused more fear in all the kingdoms, which caused Grimm worldwide to attack. And then you had the final fight with Cinder and Pyrrha, which broke off the way that it did, and it had this really gritty kind of just tonal shift. And it's like, yeah, okay, the tonal shift was a little sudden, but it also built it up nicely throughout the season, how it's like, all these things are making... It goes progressively from just nervousness to straight up fear and chaos. And I thought it was really nice. And from a narrative standpoint, like, everything that happens later, like Season 4 and Season 5, everything with Salem, and how dark that alone is, like, fucking... Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen, like, fully Season 5 yet, but fuck, the way that the headmaster dies, holy shit. Holy shit. That was, even for me, I'll admit, that's dark for the way he got killed. And I loved every second of it.
Yeah, and when you look at the story, it's like, you know, people complaining about how, you know, it's like it became like all dark and gritty. It's like, yeah, I mean, the tonal shift was a bit, you know, I can understand it's like if it's just like if it's a bit sudden, but at the same time, it's like it's not necessarily like it's not like poorly written. It's not poorly written, you know. It's actually interesting.
Fuck you, McCree. It's really interesting, and in my opinion, it is decently written, and it makes sense, especially from a narrative standpoint, because Salem is evil. Salem is pure evil. There is nothing you can say to argue that. Salem is pure evil. Also, from like the way that they've established her, she's not a villain in the traditional sense of like, oh, she's just a person out for this and that. She is a force of fucking nature.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how she's been built up, is as a force of pure evil. And as a result, you're introducing this essence of pure evil into the world. Yes, it's going to fucking take a serious turn. Everything's going to become serious and, like, less lighthearted. Like, fucking of course!
Yeah.
What else did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
That, like, this pure force of chaos and evil would just show up and everything would stay fine? No! And also, my biggest issue when people say that Ruby's a bad protagonist because she's clumsy and childish and blah 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 blah, your argument is not valid because she's the youngest person in the show. Well, aside from Oscar when he shows up. But, like, also, your argument's not truly valid because Ruby, first of all, is a child who got thrown into all of this. And yet, despite being thrown into all of this, is still trying to be the symbol of hope and, like, try and keep her team, like, hopeful and, like, provide, like, hey, even though everything sucks right now, we can do it as long as we do this and that. That's her character. I have nothing wrong with that. And,
Yeah,
like,
she's the one who tries to keep everyone, you know, at least a little bit optimistic, you know? Like, she's the one who tries to keep things...
And yeah,
you know,
people can argue, like, oh, she's goofy even though all this and that's happening. It's like, you realize that she's only goofy before shit happens and after shit happens. Because when shit's going down, Ruby's the most serious person out of all of them.
And even then, like, after shit happens, like, you can tell that she's...
Ruby, are you
like,
okay? No, I'm mad. Oh shit. Things just got real.
After things happen, like, you can tell, like, she's, like, the way she's kind of trying to be a little bit, you know, cheerful, you know, and goofy a little bit about, you can tell this is how she's kind of coping with how things are going on, because you can tell she's affected by things. It's not like she's not affected by it.
And I did like how they brought it up in that episode with Oscar and how he was like, how can you still stand there and smile when all this shit is happening? And you have this really nice emotional scene with Oscar where she's like, I am scared out of my fucking mind. But I'm here because I have to be. Because all these people that have sacrificed themselves for us, and I have to honor that. And that's why I'm here despite how scared I am, because I have a responsibility to uphold these ideals that these other people put onto me. Because they died so that I could still be here. So I'm going to honor that by continuing this fight. And so that no one else has to go through what we're going through right now. And it's like, I immediately, after seeing this scene, look at everyone else that's like, oh, Ruby's a bad protagonist because she's childish. I look at this scene and I'm like, really now? Alright. You want to say that, then fine. And then it's like, oh, she's clumsy and she doesn't know how to fight properly. And it's like, yeah. She doesn't know how to fight with her hands. Have you seen her fight with her scythe, though? And that was the biggest point of Season 5 when Oz showed up and was like, hey, without your scythe, you're useless. So, give me your scythe. We're going to train.
Exactly. Like, they acknowledge that.
They're doing character growth and character development. And you want to be like, oh, she's childish and clumsy and blah, 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 blah. It's like, motherfucker, sit the fuck down and let the show progress.
Yeah. You also just have to remember, the episodes are not that long.
They're really not.
They only fit so much in the episodes that they're making. And you kind of have to consider, like, it's not like it's like they're hand-drawing these things. This is the way they're animating it. Like, it's not easy to animate either. So it takes them a while to make this. And, you know, you can, and that's another thing, you know, about this. It's like, you can tell the people making this, like, really you know, they really put a lot of like hard work into making this show. They put in a lot of hard work into making it, and you can tell that they, you know, they have a passion for it. They like, and you know, they enjoy what they're doing. You know, it's something.
I love the way that Ruby is right now. I love how the tone shift. I loved how it's serious, but at the same time, it does have its goofy moments. It has its lighthearted moments still, which, in this gritty, serious atmosphere that they're in now, are so much more meaningful.
Yeah, and also when you look at it, it's not like it's dark and gritty just for the sake of being
dark and gritty. It fits the narrative.
Yeah, they try to write, and they actually try to make a story out of it. You know, it's not perfect by any means. Nothing's ever gonna be perfect. But, you know, I still enjoy it for what it is, you know, and, you know, people obviously do enjoy it for what it is, you know, and I can understand, you can have your own opinion, you don't have to like it. Nobody has to like anything, it's up to you and your opinion, but, you know, you can share your opinion, you can talk about, you know, what, you can give your points, and you can try to give your side of an argument. You know, don't just trash something for the sake of trashing it.
It was the same thing that I had with a lot of people that argued the fact that Blake's character arc and like her coming out of her shell basically again, and everyone made the argument that, oh, it's the worst part of that season because it takes so fucking long for Blake to come out of her depression and everything. And it's like,
you know how depression works.
And I'm just sitting here like, bro, like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, not every character can just, like, go through a defeat and then 2 episodes later be like, okay, I got my ass beat, let's take care of shit, because now I have a second wind. No, not every character can be a Goku. Not every character can be Goku, and Goku, in my opinion, for as fun as he is, I don't like Goku that much because of that, where it's like, oh, I got my ass beat, but there's no real consequence because in the next episode I get another power boost and just dominate everything. Yeah. Like, that is all Goku is. And yet Goku is praised as being like, oh, it's so cool, it's so action-packed, it's so amazing. And it's like, it's really not. Dragon Ball Z is only good for Dragon Ball Z because Dragon Ball Z is Dragon Ball Z. It works for it. It doesn't need a story because it's established itself as a fighting show. Ruby is not specifically a fighting show. I mean, there are anime-esque fights in it, like, I'm not going to deny that. Look at the fucking fight between, what's her name? Between Raven and Cinder. Like, that alone is anime as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to deny that Ruby has its anime moments, but also it has a story to tell. And it's balancing its storytelling with its action, and it's doing it very good, in my opinion. And I can understand, like, oh, people want to see fights more in Ruby. They don't really care much for the story, or if they do, like, they just want to see the action. The story is a secondary thing. For me, the story comes first. I don't really care about the action. A lot of issues that I saw that people had with Season 5, or Volume 5, whatever the fuck you want to call it, basically Season 5. A lot of the issues that I saw that people had with Season 5 was that it took, like, half the season for, like, shit to, like, really start happening. Most of the early parts of the season were just, like, plot development and storytelling. And I can understand people having their issues with that. Me, personally, I loved it. I thought it was really nice to, like, have all that plot development and then have, like, everything happen in the background. Because, like, even though we were getting a lot of plot development, it's not like we weren't getting action. I mean, like, hey, here's an episode of plot development. What's happening as a second plot in that episode? Cinder's attacking Raven's camp while Oz is talking about his past. and you want to talk about how nothing is happening? Motherfucker!
A lot is going on, honestly. It's like they have...
Everything is happening.
On.
And it's just one of those things where it bugs me that, like, okay, I can understand that point, like, oh, it's a little slow, blah 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 blah, it could have been a little faster. I can understand that. Do not hate on a season and say that it's bad specifically because they decided to sit the fuck down and give you some plot.
Yeah. Like...
Also, do not hate on a character because it takes them a while to get over their depression.
Yeah, that kind of just irks me a bit. Just...
Also, again, they want to yell at Blake for going through her depression and taking so long to get over it. Fucking Yang took most of the season to get over the fact that she lost her arm.
Yeah.
And yet nothing is said about Blake at all. Not Blake, I mean Yang. Yang lost her arm. No, and it took her an entire season to get over that.
Mm-hmm.
It took her an entire season to get over the fact that, hey, my arm was cut the fuck off.
Yeah, and like she was
no one says anything about it, and it still affects her up throughout season 5. She still has PTSD because every time she uses her power, her arm shakes, and she has to calm herself down. She's still suffering from PTSD, and no one's saying anything about it. But Blake, who saw the person that she loved attack a friend of hers and take her friend's arm, she's getting, and like, basically, Blake was so terrified of opening up to Yang, Ruby, and Weiss because in her mind, and I'm taking this right from the anime because Ruby says, well, not Ruby herself, but Weiss says it, but like the show addresses it, that Blake didn't want to open up to everyone because she was scared of her past coming back and fucking up her present and her future. And what happened after 2.5 seasons, because like at the end of season 3 is when everything went to shit. What happened after she finally truly opened up to everyone? Her past caught up to her and fucked up her friends.
Yeah.
She finally opened up and the universe proved her right that, hey, yeah, your past fucking caught up with you. And it traumatized her, and yes, she ran away from it.
Mm-hmm.
She fucking ran away. She had every right to do that. She had, like, okay, she could have stood around and been like, hey, I'm going to stay and fight. She could have, but she didn't, and it's understandable that she didn't. Because not everyone can be Ruby. Not everyone can look at a situation and be like, hey, we have to keep fighting, we have to keep going. Not everyone can do that. And I really like the fact that Yang and Blake, at the end of season 3, were like, fuck it. There's nothing that we're going to do. Because Blake ran away, and Yang decided to stay at home, even though Ruby was like, hey, we have to go to this other kingdom and do all this other shit to try and help people. And Yang's like, no, fuck that. I got my arm cut off. I'm staying here. I'm staying home. Fuck this. Like, fuck everything we went through. And like, even Weiss, like, her little character arc that she went through in Volume 4, she was taken by her dad after everything happened. And like, you saw how her family life was, and she ran away to like join up with Ruby and all of them again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, like, if you think about it, in my opinion, Ruby was with Ren, Nora, and John.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really think about it, Ruby, Nora, Ren, and John were the only ones that were like, hey, we have a fight to fight. Let's go do it. Because even though Weiss, like, her main goal was to, like, join up with Ruby and everyone, I don't think her motivation was, oh, hey, there's people to save. Her main motivation throughout that entire season was, I need to get away from my family and establish myself as my own person, and to do that, I need to meet up again with Ruby. She didn't care about the fight. She didn't care... Well, at this point, she didn't know about Salem. But, like, she didn't know, and she didn't care about the fight. She didn't care about, well, saving people directly. And I mean, like, yeah, okay, in Season 5, there you had that moment where they got the distress signal, and Weiss is like, hey, we should go help those people because no one else is around. But that wasn't her goal, was to be like, oh, hey, I'm going to go out and save people. The only reason why Weiss was concerned with that distress call was because it happened while they were in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And in her mind, it's like, oh, that person needs help, we should go help them. Yeah. And the other guy was like, well, no, because I'm not a combat ship, and I just need to get you to where you want to go, and so that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that, because it's like you have... And I hate it, because everyone's like, oh, all these characters are going through pointless plots and character arcs that need to be wrapped up, and you need to get the whole team together because it's only Ruby when the whole team is together. And that's what the audience wants to see. And it's like, yes, the audience wants to see Ruby's team get back together. However, they also want to see plot development and character growth. And if it bothers you that they're getting character growth in a show, then don't watch the fucking show.
Exactly, like...
If it bothers you that fucking much that these people are getting character development and character growth and becoming established characters, then fuck off.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yes. I don't know.
I have very few issues. And honestly, I have plenty of issues with other anime. I have a lot of issues. You know me, I have a lot of issues. A perfect example of this is Naruto.
Yeah.
I have a shit ton of issues with Naruto, and Bleach especially. I have a shit ton of issues with Bleach. Mostly in the way it ended, because hey, guess what? I don't think I ever like actually talked to you about this. I mean, I've told you like in great detail how I hate the way it was ended, because Shonen Jump like basically came out and said, hey, you have to wrap this up now, and basically only gave him 10 chapters to finish up a story. I don't think I told you about this, but I recently found out that they cut Bleach 100+ chapters short. So I want to put that in perspective for everyone. That Bleach's ending was wrapped up in 10 chapters because the company told him to wrap it up in 10 chapters. There was supposed to be more than 100 chapters left before it ended. I just want to clarify that we were, for the ending of Bleach, we were supposed to get over 100 more chapters. And then the company's like, no, we needed to end in 10.
Yeah.
And yes, I have my own issues with Bleach, but most of my issues for Bleach itself, outside of the Fullbringer arc, because, well, Fullbringer arc was a little meh. I don't hate the Fullbringer arc as much as other people do. I have my issues with it, but it was pretty enjoyable for the most part. I liked the ending of it. But my biggest issue for Bleach is the same severe issue that I have with Naruto, and especially Naruto Shippuden. The filler in it is ridiculously annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that kind of got to me. Because like, don't get me wrong, I love Naruto. I love the show. I love Naruto Shippuden. Like, I like the show.
Do you know?
And I like the manga too. And like, but it was just the filler. that mostly that I had issues with. And I had issues with the show itself and some of the characters every now and then, but I feel like most of my issues with it were just nitpicks of my own thing. So that's just personal things to me. So even then, I can't really call them real issues because.
Also, biggest issue as far as like filler and like especially for Bleach that everyone really hates as far as the filler arcs is the second season, the Bount arc. And okay, yeah, even I can admit like the Bount arc has its meh moments, but I didn't dislike the Bount arc. I actually found it really enjoyable and fun. And it's like, okay, at the time that I first watched it, I didn't know what filler was. I thought everything you saw in anime was canon.
Yeah.
So I thought the Bount arc was canon. And I was like, okay, it's a little meh, especially after like the sheer ferocity of the Soul Reaper, like the Soul Society arc. Like that was fucking... Soul Society arc was amazing, and then to follow it up with something like the Bount arc was just meh. But to me, I can understand why a lot of people were like, meh, Bount arc. For me, I don't dislike it as much as other people do, because other people dislike the fuck out of the Bount arc, and then I watched the Bount arc, and it's like, okay, it has its meh moments, but I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. I thought that... I can't remember his name. I know that it started with a K. I know that his name started with a K, but like... I liked the idea of the dolls that they had, that the Bounce had, because the dolls were like extensions of their souls. And if you poured too much of your own soul into the doll would go crazy and it could kill you. I really liked that idea. And I also liked the idea of the main villain and how it was like you couldn't kill him in the same traditional ways that you could kill the other Bounce, because he wasn't like the other Bounce, because he fused his doll with his own body.
Mm-hmm.
And transformed it into a weapon. And like, yeah, okay, you saw other Bounce whose dolls were weapons, like, okay, that wasn't anything new. But you could kill the doll. There were ways that you could straight up kill the doll without fighting the Bounce. But with the main villain, you couldn't do that because his doll was in his body. Like, you had to fight the motherfucker. And then there were all these other things where it's like, oh, this usually, like, this kind of attack should work on a Bounce, but it didn't work on him. Okay, well, why? And it's like, you find out that the reason why is because he modified his own body to, like, resist certain weaknesses that Bounce had. And it's like, motherfucker, that is ingenious. And it's like, to get back onto my point for Ruby, like, all these issues, like, I'm not saying that I don't have issues with anime. I have plenty of fucking issues with anime. Yeah. Naruto, Bleach, perfect examples of that. Hell, I even went on a little tangent earlier about Dragon Ball and Goku's character and how he's just a meathead that's like, there's no consequence for me getting blasted in the chest because I'll be fine in the next episode and will dominate.
I mean, hey, even with me, like, I have issues with shows too. Like, I don't, like, as much as I love freaking, Death Note, Full Metal Alchemist, like, I still find myself...
Misa!
Yeah, I have issues with the show, like, and I know people, like, for me, like, I personally just, Death Note, like, for me, I felt like Misa was kind of unnecessary in some... Or even then, I feel like they made her way more, like, annoying and, like...
If you wanted her character to be there, her character could have been there. I had no issue with her character being there. My issue
Yeah,
with Misa's character was her character.
exactly. That's what I'm
I
talking about.
didn't
Like, she
mind
could've
her
been-
being there as a character. I hated her character. Because I found her... She was overly annoying, first of all. And it's like, in the show of drama and just... And I get it, not everyone can be a super genius like Light and L. Not everyone can be that smart and serious all the time and devious.
But here's my biggest issue. Like, my biggest issue was that when they first introduced her, like, they kind of established was like, Misa's really not that dumb. You know, she was
And then she
able
just
to
became stupid.
It was mostly just because as soon as she got the attention that she wanted from Light, it was just, oh, I need to make Light happy. I'll do anything for Light. It's all for Light. And I'm like...
I really hated that because...
Like, she lost, you know... She just didn't really have, like, think for herself after that. And, you know, like, before, like, yes, the plan that she had to get Light's attention, she could have executed things better so that, because then, you know... Like, you know, there were flaws in her plan, of course, like, you know, what Light, you know, had stated before and stuff like that, you know, of course, there were problems. But, you know, she was still smart enough, you know, not to, like, leave traces of stuff everywhere, like, of her.
Also, the way that she had set it up was that her friend would have been blamed for all of it.
Exactly. Like, and, you know, she,
and
like, her friend
even
was always
then,
into the occult and stuff like that, so it's like, you know, she had, like, a good person to kind of, you know, put it on.
And even then, she even said, like, if it gets to the point where I think she would even, like, sell me out and tell the authorities that it was actually me, I'll just kill her. Like, Misa straight up said, like, hey, if it looks like my friend will throw me under the bus, I'll just fucking kill her. It doesn't matter. And then it's like, they established that she was clever. And I wouldn't say that she was, like, smart, because, like, against Light and L, she just wasn't. But she was, I can say that she was clever when she was first introduced. Because, again, another thing that they established was she only figured out that Light had a death note because she couldn't see his name. Or, like, she could see his name, but she couldn't see his lifespan with her Shinigami eyes. However, she could see everyone else's lifespans, which queued her up, like, oh, I can't see your lifespan, therefore you must have a death note. Which, in that case, it's probably likely that you're the real Kira. Because of that, and having the death note would give you the ability to do what you do. So they established her from the beginning that yes, she wasn't a smart character in the terms of Light and L, but she was a clever character.
Yeah, and you know,
and then 10 episodes later, she's a fucking just stereotypical blonde, like, oh, I'm going to do these because Light.
Yeah. And also just like, even then, like, she was smart enough to at least, you know, when she went out to go see for the first time to try to find Light, you know, she was able to disguise, like, she disguised herself and everything. Like, she was smart enough to know, oh, I shouldn't go out looking like this because people would recognize you.
Exactly. Like, she was clever at first, and that was awesome, and then she, like, a few episodes later just, again, became the blonde bimbo, and it's like, well, fuck you, mate.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the series, she committed suicide because she couldn't live without Light, and blah 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 blah. Also, again, my biggest issue, aside from Misa, for Death Note is the way it ended. Like, Light... Okay, I can understand you, like, don't want the villain to win. Like, the good people should win, I can understand that. Light should not have lost.
That pretty much, like, everyone... Like, when you ask anyone if they had an issue with Death Note, they usually say that it was the way it ended, because, you know, they could have done it much better. And they could have had...
In my personal opinion,
Right.
In my personal opinion, Light, first of all, shouldn't have lost. He should have won. There's no reason for him to have lost outside of plot. And also, if you did want Light to lose, okay, fine, he can lose. But the way he lost was bullshit.
Yeah.
Because literally, the only reason he lost, looking at it all, was plot. Nier didn't earn that victory. It was given to him. If it had been L, if L had been the one to beat Light at the end of it, L would have fucking deserved it. He would have earned that shit. Nier didn't do shit. Nier was like, oh, it's Light.
Yeah, and L had already had that figured out.
But L went through the effort of proving it. L went through, like, the effort of, like, trying to convince and find, like, actual proof that he could put on Light. Nier's just like, oh, it's Light. And here's why. And, oh, it's all these other people working for him. And by the end of it, it's like, oh, we switched out the Death Note for a fake Death Note by replacing some of the pages. And it's like, well, that itself is bullshit because pages that are added to the Death Note become real pages.
The rules even state that. Like, they had, like, if you look at the rules, if you get, like, a Death Note, or if you look in the manga and look at the rules for the Death Note,
any pages added to the Death Note become real pages. And then like a few minutes later, they were like, Light was like, oh, well, you only switched out half the book, so the other half should have worked properly. And Nier was like, oh yeah, by the way, we also had that as a contingency. Not only did we remove that page, those pages, and like replace them with quote unquote fake pages, but we also replaced the book itself with a fake book. And it's like, motherfucker, no, you just said you replaced the pages.
And you can see, that's what, like, where I looked at, like, when they did the live action drama, like, I watched it. It's nowhere as good as the original thing is. It's not. I mean, I watched it. It was okay. I kind of found it a bit weird that they had Light be more of just an average person. But I'm like, I mean, because you know that was the kind of the point, you know, of the show.
Oh, you're talking about the Netflix movie.
No, not the Netflix movie. In Japan, they made. I'm not talking about the movie. I'm actually talking about the live-action TV drama. Like, it's set like an actual like show.
Oh, okay.
It's Japanese.
Oh, they made him average in that one too?
Somewhat, yeah. Like, I mean, he was still kind of smart, but you know, it's better than the Netflix movie. It's better than the Netflix movie, definitely. That and like the other, you know, adaptations that, you know, from Japan are.
See, I liked the Netflix movie. And fuck all y'all that want to hate on it. Not you specifically, Jasper, but like, I'm not gonna lie, there are issues with it. I had my issues with the Netflix movie. However, it doesn't deserve the hate that it's gotten. Like, the day it came out, there was like already 5 YouTube videos of people being like, this was absolute horseshit. It was stupid, it was disrespectful to the original source material. There was no reason for this movie to have been made. That pissed me the fuck off.
Yeah, like, I actually remember going over, like, when I was watching, some of, like, there was actually, like, 2 different, you know, YouTubers that I watched that, they both went over the movie, but, like, they weren't instantly crashing on it. They were actually giving out, you know, points on it that was, you know, like, kind of defended some, and, you know, they were trying, you know, to argue against a lot of the hate that I was getting, because I'm like, you know, it really didn't need to be hated on that much. I can understand, you know, you love the source material and all, but it's like, you know, the person making this, it's like, you gotta understand is that anime is still kind of, despite how popular, like, it's getting popular, yes, but at the same time, it's still kind of a niche thing. Like,
I don't think anime should ever have a live-action adaptation. I just don't.
Yeah,
in my personal opinion, if something is made, if a cartoon is made, it should stay as that. It should stay animated or cartooned, well, animated, but like anime, cartoons, like whatever you want to fucking call it, it should stay that. There's no. And the reason I say this, because like we have shows like Dragon Ball Z, and for whatever fucking reason, One Piece is getting a live action adaptation.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that at all.
Yeah.
I am not okay with One Piece getting a live action adaptation. I'm just not. And the reason for it, the reason that I think that anime and cartoons shouldn't get live action adaptations is because, first of all, one of two things is going to happen. Either the live action adaptation is going to, first of all, just remove anything that, like, anything that could be remotely considered cartoony and try and make it more grounded and realistic, or it's going to use very poor CGI and try and keep in all the cartoon elements while also being live action.
Yeah, and that just doesn't.
And we've seen how that goes.
Yeah, no.
Son of the Mask is a perfect example. Roger Rabbit, for as beautiful as it was, I have no issues with Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit was fucking adorable. I loved it as a kid, and I still love it. However, again, none of the human characters had cartoon traits. Like when the cartoon character, like when something happened and the cartoon character's eyes bugged out, it was only the cartoon character's eyes that bugged out. The humans didn't have that.
Exactly. Like they kept the cartoons. And,
the
like,
humans were humans, and the cartoons were cartoons.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how I feel like it should have. And that's the way it should be. It's like if something is happening in real life, you kind of have to have some sort of ground for it, or at least establish. If you're going to try to do something with it, like you kind of have to make sure you can establish some sort of, like you have to ground it somehow, and make like because.
And again, the argument for anime and CGI. Horrible CGI adaptation. Fucking, well, aside from the Netflix version of Death Note, because their CGI for Ryuk, at the very least, was really good. I liked it. I mean, it was clearly CGI, but goddamn, it looked amazing. It looked way better than he did in the Japanese live-action movies, and... I want my apple! Why are you on the ceiling smashing your face into it? I mean, this is a funny ass scene and I love it, but goddamn! Get your fake CGI ass down here. And again, another one with poor CGI. Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z Evolution. Live action anime CGI gone wrong. And another one, because I don't like talking about the Evolution movie for Dragon Ball Z, another one that's really bad as far as a live-action anime adaptation that had atrocious fucking CGI. Attack on Titan.
The Titans just didn't...
Worthy of repetition.
See, like, the Titans are supposed to look, you know, they're not supposed to look good. You know, you look at them, you know, they're supposed to be freaky looking. But, you know, the CG just...
My biggest complaint also, I'm the same way for American cartoons and American animated media being turned into live action. The DC universe, the Marvel universe, I do not at all like their live action stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
There are good moments in their live action stuff, but other stuff is just stupid. First of all, again, I much prefer DC and Marvel animated because you can get away with things animated that you can't get away with in live action because of the CGI.
Yeah.
Also, the costumes alone look much better animated than they do in real life. Want to know why? Because they're cartooned. and drawn, and they look amazing as drawings. And you want to know why they look amazing as drawings? Because you don't see what they would look like in real life.
Yeah.
Batman's costume, Flash's... How the fuck... Flash's costume and Batman's costumes were tights. They were tight fucking, like... Or, like... In the original cartoons, outfits like Flash and Green Lantern and Batman were spandex. That's it. They were just tight. And Superman. Superman. They were all spandex outfits.
Yeah.
That was it. In the earlier adaptations of live action, that's all they were, was spandex tight outfits. And that was fine. However, as the years went on, and they tried to make the characters look better live action, and tried to make the costumes look armored and blah 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 blah, and add all these other things, the armors and costumes started to look fucking weird.
Yeah, like with Batman, I can kind of get away with it as long as you keep Batman in the shadows. The second you start showing Batman in the light, he looks fucking stupid.
He really does.
Like,
and the biggest thing about Batman's costumes, live action, is that for whatever reason, they decided to try and make him bulky and made out of rubber, and it doesn't work.
And my thing was like with Superman.
Mostly it's the mask. For me, mostly for Batman and like how bad his costume is, it's mostly the mask.
Yeah, it doesn't translate that well into real life. Like,
it would be better if they just left it as a cloth mask that he had hooked up to like this cape that's part of like this bulky costume. That's okay. The costume, like the body costume itself, is good because it's like okay, it's got to be bulletproof. All right, that makes sense. All right, I don't have a problem with Batman's outfit. However, the cape is cloth. And for whatever reason, 90% of the time, his mask is made out of rubber and just doesn't move with him. So whenever he moves his head, the mask kind of just stays in place.
Yeah.
And again, I have my issues with anime, and I want to like just wrap this up because we've gone on this tangent, and I had originally tried to make a point for Ruby.
Yeah, but I still wanted to kind of bring up these like 2 points though. One about like Batman's costume and one about Superman's costume, because these were 2 things that I kind of had to say about it, like with Batman, because that whole thing, because when it came to like the movie that came out, the one that Tim Burton directed with Jack Nicholson as the Joker. See, Batman in that one. Like, first off, they kept him in the shadows, for one, when they had him suited up.
Tim Burton did both of them. He did that one and he did Batman Forever.
Yeah,
it definitely shows in Batman Forever.
For Batman, yeah, well, I'm not talking about Batman.
How can you tell Tim Burton worked on Batman Forever? Look at the fucking city's architecture. Tell me that Tim Burton didn't work on this.
For Batman, it works. You know, it works for Batman. That's what I'm trying to say. But
Not really. The costume itself was okay in Forever, but my biggest issue with Forever, aside from some of the acting and the
I'm
girl.
not talking about Batman Forever. I'm not talking about Batman Forever.
No, but you said Tim Burton, so.
Yeah, no, but Tim Burton didn't direct Batman Forever.
No, I'm not saying he directed it or anything. I'm saying he was clearly involved in it, though. Just you can tell that by looking at the settings.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the one that he directed, the one with Jack Nicholson as the Joker. That's the one I'm talking about.
I loved that adaptation of Joker.
See that, but you see, and Batman in that one actually. First off, I just have to point out the voice for one. He actually didn't sound like. When I heard Batman speak in that movie, I wasn't like, damn, do you need a cough drop? Because
where are they?
Where are they? That's the problem I had with freaking Christian Bale's Batman, because it's like,
I hate.
What,
I don't
why are
hate
you
Christian
changing
Bale as a person or as an actor. I hate Christian Bale
he's
as Batman.
Yeah, he's a good actor. Don't get me wrong.
He's
He's a
good
good
as Bruce
actor.
Wayne. Christian Bale is a good Bruce Wayne. He's a fucking horrible Batman.
Yeah. Just that whole...
Where
the whole
are
time
they?
I heard him speak, I'm just like, how much strain are you putting on your voice to do that? That is not necessary. But yeah, no, with, you know, from Tim Burton's movie, like, you know, with that Batman, like, you know, he actually changed his voice a bit, but it wasn't to like, it didn't sound like it was straining, for one. It actually sound like he actually seemed pretty intimidating as Bruce. You know, he was also a good Bruce Wayne as well. But as Batman, you know, he was pretty intimidating. He was cool to see, and you know, and that whole thing where like where with his mask, where he kind of couldn't really, because it was in the early like, you know, developments of like it was an earlier adaptation, so like they were still like, you know, changing up the suit a bit, but like, you know, that whole thing where, you know,
I feel like they still could have just made it cloth even back then.
True, but still, you know, this, they were, like for this one, like for that one, I thought it looked, just for, you know, the setting and stuff that it looked, and the way that I was portrayed in that one, I thought it worked okay. I didn't have too many complaints with it. You know, the way his mask would like kind of wouldn't exactly turn, like he wasn't able to really turn his head, but like so his whole body would kind of have to move with him. You know, I actually didn't mind that, to be honest. Like I thought it was okay. Just the way he would kind of turn. Like, you know, whenever he would turn, you know, his attention to something, like it was a lot more like kind of dramatic in some ways.
Yeah.
But my issue with, my issue with like Superman though, with his costume is that when you look at it, it's blue spandex with a pair of red underwear on top.
Again,
Like
it's better as a comic book and cartoon than it is in real life.
That does not translate well to real life. Like, you wear that in real life, you look stupid. As a cartoon, you can get away with that, because it's like, it's fine, it's animated.
In real life, the only time you should be wearing a spandex tight bodysuit and red little pants is when you're cosplaying, role-playing with your wife in bed. It should not be a movie.
But I mean,
Hey, I'm just saying, I know that people have those kinks, and I'm not disrespecting the kinks, I know that they're there. I'm just saying.
Keep it in the bedroom.
Keep it in the bedroom, don't make a movie out of it.
But yeah, no, even then, like, and you know, the original Superman movies, they were fine for what they were, you know, like, and I can see it, you know, they were entertaining. But, you know, my thing is, like, when they tried to, like, fix his suit, the first off, they kind of, like, made him a bit bulkier, and then they tried to take away the red underwear, and all you had was just bulge. And I don't think that's an improvement. I'm sorry.
Damn it.
That's not an improvement.
It really is not.
I'm sorry, that's not what I don't need to see that. Personally, I mean, I don't know, like...
I mean, there's some fans that want to, but I'm not one of them.
Neither am I. I'm sorry, I personally just didn't, like, when I can't take him seriously when that's just kinda out there. I'm sorry. It's distracting. Like, that was the kind of thing about like the red part of the original costume was kind of there, though, like, cause then you didn't, that was, you know, I prefer that over just having the freaking super bulge.
So I've got to cut the stream short. And I feel like this is a nice stopping point for the stream anyway, and the reason I have to cut it is because Quincy's inviting us to a party. And she wants to do her own thing. And I've basically said everything I've wanted to say for this stream. Like, I've talked about Ruby, I talked about, like, other medias and, like, people's issues with other things, and it's like, I don't feel like it's fair because these other shows and other characters get super popular, and then at the same time, those people that think those characters are super popular hate other characters in the same universe for the exact same reasons.
Yeah, but we can talk more about this some other time, and we can stream about this again. I don't know. I don't like.
I just wanted to like point that out, that I don't. I understand that people might not like Ruby. I don't understand why people hate it the way that they do, and I don't agree with their arguments, because their arguments are just stupid and invalid, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, and you know, a lot of the stuff that we said, even with the other stuff that we just kind of talked about, it is our opinion. Nobody really has to agree with what we're saying. But you know, and if they disagree, it's fine. They can, you know, have a. Like, I don't mind having a discussion about these things. But,
I will say this.
Be civil about it. That's all
I will
have to
say this. My only issue with Ruby, for the most part, when I first got into Ruby, even now, my only main issue with it was the way it started off with its animation. That was it. That's my issue with it, was the way the animation started.
But yeah, but then again,
and look how gorgeous it is. Look how gorgeous it is now.
It's gotten so good.
It's gotten so much better. Like, oh my god, it's beautiful, and the attention to detail that they do. Like when Tyrion's fighting them, and his eyes change from yellow to purple. That attention to detail, oh my god, it's beautiful.
Prepare to attack.
Yeah, no, I like how the animation is. They definitely improved a lot on it.
And I'll say this, like, Ruby as a show, even in my opinion, for as much as I love it, it's not perfect. I can say that. It's not a perfect show. It's just not. However, it's one of the... Actually, I think, now that I'm actually thinking about this, I think it's the only show I've ever watched that I don't have a problem with. Because the only issue I had was the animation from the first 3 seasons, and, well, that's not a problem anymore because season 4 and 5 are beautifully animated.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, okay, people can make the argument of, like, oh, this character's underwritten, or this character hasn't contributed anything, or is cliche, and it's like, we're almost 6 seasons in, we're going on to our 6th season, and all these characters are still underdeveloped and everything. And it's like, yeah, but that still means that there's room for character growth.
Yeah.
And as they are right now, they're still good. No one needs an immediate dramatic... My favorite thing about Mercury right now is that we don't know anything about them. And honestly, yeah, I'll say it. I fucking want to know what happened with Mercury. I want to know his backstory. Like, what happened with his dad? Why did him and his dad fight, and why did he kill his dad? What happened? But at the same time, as much as I want to know what happened in his past, I don't care about what happened to his past, because that makes it more fun to speculate on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I've seen other people talk about, like, how Mercury has those robotic legs now, but in the flashback he clearly had regular legs, and everyone's like, oh, it's that fight that's the reason. It's that fight with his dad that gave him the mechanical legs, because his legs got fucked up. My issue with that theory, I like the theory, and I do believe that something had to happen to him in order for him to get his mechanical legs. I don't think it was that fight, though, and my reason for thinking that...
We were screaming, by the way.
Oh no, I didn't let her know.
Yeah, because I just got invited too, so I'm like...
Let her know that I'm wrapping that
sorry.
up in a few minutes. I just want to finish my point.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure about that, because I... yeah, my bad. Let me message Ashley.
Yeah, I'm texting her now, too. Streaming. One sec. There we go. But, anyway, like, the reason why I don't believe that it was the fight with his dad that gave him the robotic legs is because when Cinder and Emerald showed up to find his dad, he was standing. Granted, Mercury in that flashback was fucked up. I'm not gonna argue that. Like, I'm not gonna say, like, oh, he was fine, he was uninjured. No, he was fucked up. Like, he definitely had his ass beat. He was definitely in a fight, and yes, I'll even admit his legs were messed up. However, he was still standing on them. And yes, you could make the argument that, oh, his legs were damaged and they couldn't heal him properly after that. And it's like, you could make that argument, but if that had been the case, I don't think he would have been able to stand.
Yeah.
I think if his legs had been damaged to the point where they couldn't be healed properly or fixed after that fight, they wouldn't have found him leaning, like standing up leaning on the fence post. They would have found him on his ass leaning against it. If his legs had been that fucked up. So I don't think it was that fight that like destroyed his legs. I think he was able to recover from that fight with his dad, and one of two things either happened. Either at some later point his legs got fucked up in a different fight and had to be replaced by the robotic legs, or he asked for robotic legs. Because he's a mercenary. His dad was a mercenary. The robotic legs make him one hell of a mercenary. They make him faster. He's got guns in his feet. So I could easily see someone with Mercury's personality just being like, hey, get rid of these legs and give me something cool that'll make me even more lethal. I could see him doing that, and I could also see them, because Cinder's whole thing was going around like trying to recruit people, I could easily see someone not agreeing with joining up with Cinder, and Cinder not being able to intimidate that person, and them having a fight, and in that fight Mercury got fucked up. I could see that happening too. I do not think it was his dad's fight that fucked up his legs that much. The fight did fuck him up. I'm not gonna argue that, because he clearly got his ass fucked up. But like, you know, that's why I like Mercury so much, and especially Emerald. Like, we don't know why she was homeless. All we know is that she was homeless and Cinder found her, and now she's very loyal to Cinder because Cinder gave her a fucking home. And that's it. That's all we got for Emerald, is she was homeless and Cinder found her on the street and was like, hey, come team up with me, you'll never go hungry again. And now Emerald's rolling with Cinder, and in Season 5 you really see that devotion that Emerald has for Cinder. When Ruby's trying to talk Emerald out of fighting, and Emerald's like, no, fuck you, I don't care about Salem, but I owe Cinder everything. You see that devotion, and I like that. And they don't show you like how their relationship developed, and that's fine. All you see from Cinder and Emerald and Mercury's relationship is how they work now, in the present. We don't know how that relationship built itself, we just know that it did. And that's fine with me. I don't need to know how it got built. It works, though. Like, these characters are fascinating because we don't need to know everything about them. We know that for whatever reason, they have their reasons for doing what they do, and for me, personally, that's enough.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that's all I need, is like... And, okay, yeah, I would be okay, and I would like to see, like, Cinder's past and, like, see why she's doing it. I would like to see it, but I don't need to see it, and I'm not gonna make a big deal out of us not seeing it, because to me, they're good characters either way, and part of the appeal for them is that we don't know their backstories. we don't know what pushed them to this extent. All we know is that something in their past pushed them in this direction and pushed them to this extreme, and speculating on that alone is what makes them so appealing. Because you have to think why and how. Like, what happened to these people to put them in a position like this? Where, and also, like, if you really want to think about it, the most appealing thing to them about the whole, like, not knowing and everything, they're still teenagers.
Yeah.
Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald, they're teenagers, and they fucking started a war. For whatever reason, something in their pasts pushed them to starting a war and killing people. And they're just teenagers.
Something happened.
And that's fascinating to think about for me, because it's like, holy shit, what the fuck pushed you guys to this extreme?
Well, you're just young.
And at the same time, like, yeah, like, I would like to know what pushed them this far, but I don't need to know because it's still compelling regardless to me. And I also think that the not knowing is more appealing to me because of the whole fact that, like, their backstories could also be super cliched.
Yeah.
Like, Emerald's an orphan. Like, they're going into that backstory, her parents could have just gotten rid of her, or her parents could have died, or her parents could have sold her off, or she ran away or something. All those are cliche backstories for characters like that. However, not having a definitive answer, not having a clear canon answer from the show about their backstory makes it appealing because you can imagine whatever you want for that character. Like, okay, her parents could have been normal people that died and she ended up being an orphan and blah 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 blah, or she could have run away because her parents were horrible people. Or, because we don't have a canon answer, her parents could have been hunters. Her parents could have been, her dad could have been a huntsman, or her mom could have been a huntress, or they could have been nobles. They could have been really high up, very social people that when they died, Emerald just didn't get, like, accepted by anyone because, well, no one's going to, like, oh, you're the orphan of this high-class family. And, like, the common people aren't going to give, a shit about this kid. Like, oh, this kid's part of this really high-up social family, but her family's dead now, and there's nothing to her name. Fuck her. Like, it's the speculation and, like, everything that you can fill in the gaps. I love that, and I find that to be more appealing. And another issue I have with the Cinder thing, and how everyone's like, oh, the way that Cinder got beat was really bullshit, and it's like, if you think Cinder's done, then you're stupid.
Yeah, they wouldn't let that. No
like, if you think that's the way Cinder's dead, like, you think that killed Cinder? Like,
yeah, no, they're not gonna let her die that easy.
Like,
no,
okay, if it turns out that Cinder is dead, alright, fine. She went out like a fucking boss, though. She fought another maiden. And, okay, yeah, you could say that Cinder should have had more experience, or blah 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 blah, like, Raven shouldn't have been as powerful as she was. First of all, we have no idea when Raven got her powers.
Yeah.
Because the way they set it up was that when the Spring Maiden, was it the Spring Maiden? Yeah, the Spring Maiden, she ran away from Haven when she was a child. At some undisclosed time, Raven killed her and got her power. So I highly doubt it's one of those things where Raven just has the power and shouldn't know how to use it. I'm pretty sure that And especially for as emotional as Raven got in that scene where she's like, what I did was a mercy. For as emotional as she got, I am fairly certain that she killed a kid.
Yeah.
She killed the Spring Maiden while she was still a child.
Mm-hmm.
And that would mean that Raven has had this power for years. And also, unlike Cinder, who's going around fucking with people and using her maiden powers that just fuck with people, Raven has had to survive with a tribe of bandits for years. So honestly, I'm not surprised that Raven has that much of a handle on her powers, because she's probably had to use it constantly.
Yeah.
Granted, she probably uses it in secret because she always wears the mask to hide her eyes whenever the power gets used, so her tribe doesn't know she's the maiden outside of Vernal, but Vernal's dead now, which I was really sad when she died. I didn't feel like she needed to die that way.
Yeah.
Her death actually was one of the few things that bugged me, because it's like, she wasn't, in my opinion, out of all the injuries that these people survive in this show, she got stabbed in the stomach and that killed her? The fuck?
Yeah. So I think this should be a good point for us to like kind of wrap.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it here now, because yeah, I do want to like start playing. I want to like get to other games with Quincy, and like she's got her own plans for what she wants us to do.
Yeah, we can probably.
And I've said everything that I needed to say. Like I brought up all my issues for Ruby and other animes, and it's like everyone's open to their opinion. I don't have an issue with someone disliking a show. Just because I like Ruby doesn't mean that everyone has to. And you know what? That's fine. If you don't like Ruby, fine. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Hell, it took me forever to get into it.
Same here. And even then, like, I didn't get it, like, it took me longer, like, it took you sitting me down and getting me to actually give it another chance for me to get into it. Like,
it took you and everyone else that we knew 3 years. 3 years to finally get me to be like, you know what, fine, I'll watch it. And even after watching it, I'll admit, the thing that got me, like, so addicted to it were their personalities. Like, I didn't care about... Obviously, the animation was atrocious in, like, seasons 1 to 3. The animation was a real big put-off for me.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me addicted to Ruby, even in those first few seasons, were their personalities and how quirky and goofy they were. I loved it. I loved how goofy they were. And... yeah, like, okay, that might contradict what I was saying earlier about how, like, I love gritty shit, and, like, I'm okay with how gritty and dark and serious it is now. But honestly...
you know, maybe it's some other time where, like, hey, you know, we'll have other times to stream again. We can always just talk about it.
I love how serious it is, but I also love how lighthearted it can be. And especially now, because now... for as serious it is, those lighthearted moments are even more meaningful. And that's what gets me. That's what I love in a show where it's like, hey, we're serious, but we're not serious for the sheer sake of being serious. It's part of the narrative, it's part of the story, it's part of storytelling, it's not out of nowhere. I like that. And yeah, okay, people can have their opinions. Anyone that's watching the stream, or like anyone that sees this as a later video on YouTube, leave your opinions on what you think of anime and Ruby specifically, or any other anime in your opinion, down in the comments, and just voice your opinion.
And, you know, of course there are going to be probably people who disagree with our opinions, because that's always going to happen.
You can disagree, I don't care. Just don't hate on something for the sheer sake of hating on it and having an argument that doesn't make sense.
Feel free to, like, share your arguments on something. Just be civil about it, for the most part.
Don't be like, oh, I hate this character because we know absolutely nothing about her. Well, we know absolutely nothing about everyone else, but you're not saying anything about those characters. The fuck?
Everyone will have issues with something, even if it's something they like or if it's something they don't like. And you know, it can be anything really. Because for me, I know a lot of issues I have with things just tend to be nitpicks I have, and that's just because that's what that is. It's just nitpicking. That's
Yeah.
everyone does that, you know. So it's fine. It really is okay. Everyone's gonna have a problem, you know, and that's fine. You can talk about that too. Because you know,
Honestly, I don't have an issue with how any of the Ruby characters are written. I think they're all written very decently.
Yeah.
And they're not written, I can't say that they're written perfectly because no character is written perfectly. But I think that the characters are written good enough, not even really decently, they're written good enough to support the story that they're telling. And the characters are written in such a way that their characters are clearly different from other characters in the show. Like, Weiss and Ruby and all the main cast, they're written in ways where it's like, yeah, okay, these people are similar to other characters that they hang out with, but they're still their own individual characters. They have different reactions to different situations. Like, in Season 5, when they met Cinder again, John went ballistically insane. He got really emotional and he lost his temper, whereas Ruby and everyone else were like, hey, calm down. And this is where we'll end the stream, because I'm going to go on a tangent again.
Yes, I was trying to stop you.
See you guys later. Leave your opinions down below, and we can go on tangents. Peace. Yep.